So making tea should be really simple. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible for everyone. But there's a few things I have to explain first. So I've been doing this for like 15 years now, which is not that long at all. But I do consider myself to be a professional tea pusher. So all I do is make everybody tea. The primary ingestion method for most of our medicine plants is to make tea and drink the tea. And so all I do is make tea. In a week, I can make 100 gallons of tea for all the programming that we do. And just I'm constantly shoving it down everyone's throat. It's such a wild job. But there's a few things to consider when you go to actually make the tea and you want to be able to make it appropriate. There's a lot of different advice out there. Boiling, steeping, or simmering, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 10 hours. There's a lot of different things. And so I just wanted to share with you how we make tea and some of the guiding principles that I use. So there's 3 things to consider when you make tea: the temperature, the duration, and how much you put in. So this is really easy. The temperature should be between 65 and 85 degrees Celsius for at least 90 minutes. And how much you put in depends on how much you want. I usually tell everybody that a toddler-sized handful for a gallon of water is really good for most people. If it tastes weak, though, you just use more of the plants. If it tastes too strong, then you use less of the plants. You kind of figure out however much you want or how much your family wants. Me, when I make tea and there's 80 people or there's 400 people in a group, I'm going to try to make tea that hits everyone's palate in a goodly way. So kind of like Tim Hortons, I just got to make sure that it's a good brew for just about everybody. Some people think it's too weak, some people think it's too strong, but generally I'm just trying to make a tea that everyone enjoys. I kind of got an understanding of how much medicine to put in. When it comes to a gallon, the toddler size handful pretty well covers it for most plants, for whether it's flowers, leaves, bark, roots. A small handful in a gallon is going to be pretty good. You're going to be the judge. If you drink it and it's too strong, then use less next time. That's all. You're going to have to figure it out. It's like a recipe when they say 1 clove of garlic. Not a lot of people listen to that. Or when you're making chili powder, how much cayenne pepper do you put in? That's going to be different for everybody. And so it depends on how strong you like it. The reason why these things are really important is because we're going to want to protect and maintain the integrity of the medicine inside of the plant. The medicine inside of the plants is contained within a volatile oil. It's volatile. That means that it'll evaporate easily. Even on the drying process of most of our medicines, they could lose 20, 60, 80% of the medicinal compounds inside of the plant evaporate into the air just while it's drying. And so your house smells amazing because that's all of the medicine that's escaping from the plants while it's drying. And so we want to minimize this as much as possible. So in our harvesting programs, I'm always sharing with everybody that we're going to want to dry everything for the longest amount of time with the lowest amount of heat. So to be able to maintain as much of the medicinal integrity inside of that plant, I like to frame it as like a way to be respectful to the plant, because you go through all this effort into maintaining your responsibilities in that relationship to that plant. So your seed collection, your seed distribution, harvesting, cuttings, and constant diversification of territory, like all of these things that we talk about, these relationships sometimes can be really difficult to maintain. So you put so much energy into that, then you're harvesting the plant, so you're killing a whole bunch of it to bring home. And it just makes sense that you're going to want to brew it appropriately. So to maintain the most amount of medicinal potential inside of your tea as possible. So temperature can't be too hot. Anything over 85 degrees Celsius is unnecessary. Anything over 85 degrees Celsius just really promotes the volatiles to evaporate. So I like to try to frame this as a point of being respectful to the plant and really focusing when you make your tea to do it in a way so that its maximum medicinal potential is there. If your tea is too hot and a lot of the medicine evaporates, then you're going to be required to drink more of the medicine to receive the therapy. And the more medicine that you're making, the more material you require, the more plants that you destroy, And so it is better to have a mentality of being respectful to the plant and making sure that you're being very careful in the brewing process so that nothing is destroyed, so that nothing is lost. And so you're going to require the least amount of plant material as possible. So I hope that makes sense. And just keep in mind that anything below 65 degrees Celsius, it's not an appropriate steeping temperature. Sometimes there's a lot of medicine that is contained within fiber complexes. Those fiber complexes have to be broken so that the oil can be released into the water so that you can drink it. So it needs to be an appropriate temperature. Again, 65 degrees, 85 degrees, that's really good. So when I go to make my tea, I usually try to hit 70, 75 degrees Celsius. And that tends to be a really good temperature. The size of pot is really important as well. Or I guess it's not really that important, but I like to share with everybody that a 1-gallon size pot is probably the best. For most families, for most individuals, whether you're looking family to start to use medicine to prevent things from happening or to maintain good health, or you're going through a lot and you require a very intense therapy, 1-gallon pot is going to be what most people are going to use for their tea. The 1-gallon pot is important because it has a volume of water that is able to retain and stay at an appropriate steeping temperature for the appropriate duration of time, the 90 minutes or so. If you have a small pot, you're always going to have to warm it up, because it's going to cool off quickly and fall out of that steeping zone, and so you have to warm it back up, and it immediately starts to cool off, and so you're going to have to be there constantly watching it. It just requires more effort. That might be your thing. It's not my thing. So 1 gallon is something that you could get up to 75 degrees or 80 degrees, throw all of your plants in, put the cover on, and then just go to bed. And in the morning it's all done. Very, very easy. And so for everybody who does our virtual programming, one of the things that we like to do is we work with Matt. He harvests medicine with us throughout the year, and he makes these little packages. So these are all measured and weighed so that these packages can just be emptied into a 1-gallon pot of water. And so this is just that toddler-sized handful ish, of what generally tastes the best for most people, but what also offers a really good therapy so that participants are actually able to feel the effects of it. Like for Bearberry, if they have kidney stones, they'll be able to have a cup or a couple cups made at this strength, and pass kidney stones, or sometimes get off of dialysis like we've had in some other events, because this medicine is able to help the kidneys so much. You just don't want to have it too hot, because then it will do nothing. And you don't want to have the temperature too low, because it won't happen. And you don't want to drink it after letting it steep for 15 minutes, because nothing will happen. It needs to be the appropriate temperature for the appropriate duration. Then people are passing kidney stones, getting off of dialysis, yada, 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 all this stuff. And so for our virtual programming, generally people get 2 different options. Option number 1 is just the whole plant all in one bag. It's not processed or chopped up or ground up in any way. It's just the whole plant. So for most of our leaves, barks, and sorts of things, they're whole like this. And so you just empty it into the gallon of water that is 75 degrees Celsius or so. These are really handy little tools from Canadian Tire, like $10 or something. And you just point it in, pull the trigger, and you get your reading, 75 degrees, and then you dump your plants in, and that's it. That's all. So the other size option that we usually have is medicines that are all ground up. It's the same amount of a toddler size handful. It's just ground up, because that tends to help the medicinal potential of the plant go into the water a lot easier. And so sometimes they're processed. And then thirdly, for our virtual programming, we have medicine packages that are really, really small. So these are usually really special plants. There's a medicine that we use for sleep. It's a very rare plant, so it's difficult to harvest and difficult to find, difficult relationship to maintain. But we're able to get some, usually rescued from developments and things. But This one we just don't need as much, so Matt will make them in little tea bags for everybody. So it's just like a normal cup of tea. So when the plants are processed this way and they're ground up, they're going to yield or lend themselves to the water much easier than if they were whole roots. It's just like when you go to like make mashed potatoes. You dice them all up so they're in small pieces so they cook faster. If you just put whole potatoes in, it takes forever for them to cook. So same thing with roots. If you have big roots, it takes long for it to cook. But if they're small or ground up into a dust, then it yields or lends itself to the water super easy. So you get these little tea bags to help with sleep. Or another one that has to be ground up for the virtual programs is the addictions medicine. So we've had so many people get their little tea bag and they make their cup of tea, and they're able to experience what it feels like to either eliminate withdrawal symptoms from opiates, benzodiazepines, or amphetamines, whatever the addiction was, whatever drug was being abused. They get to feel what it feels like to not have withdrawals. And often they could quit withdrawal symptom free. So this is a really cool thing just from our virtual programming, just to be able to see from participants when we come back in the next week or the next day, whenever the next stream as a part of the program is, and they have a story to share about their addiction issues and about their how they have managed it in the last week thanks to the tea. Some of the most incredible stories, but it's just tea. That's all it is tea. So all you got to remember is the appropriate temperature, the appropriate duration of time, and you have fun learning how much to put in. That determines the strength of the tea. So just don't want to have it too cold because it doesn't steep. The medicine doesn't get into the water, and you don't want to have it too hot because then all the medicine goes into the air. You don't want to steep it too short because then you're not going to get anything or everything. And as long as you hit that 90-minute mark, you're going to ensure that you have all of your medicinal potential inside of the pot. And so 1 gallon of pot is a perfect size. You get it up to 75 degrees, drop your plants in, and then just go to bed for the night. And in the morning, it had steeped all night long. After 90 minutes, all the medicinal potential is there. But if you continue to let it cool off naturally throughout the night, it brings out a totally different flavor. More often than not, a flavor that people haven't experienced before. They'll drink the tea at like an event that we've done, and they're like, "Oh my God, I've never had cedar tea taste this good." Because they were boiling it, they were using too much, because that can be real critical of everyone's brewing technique. But just as long as you have those 3 principles down and you work within this framework of being respectful to the plants and just always thinking like, how can you be more respectful? Well, that even comes right into the brewing technique that you use. So hopefully that kind of gives us everything that we need to know and understand about how to make the tea. Tools that we're going to want to have. The 1 gallon pot and the thermometer. Like I said, this stuff is so simple, and I want it to be nice and easy for everybody. Get some nice hot water, throw your plants in, put a cover on, and go to bed. Should be good.